What's up, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of the Fancast Live podcast. I am here once again with my boy, Jamie Hollywood Barrett. He's joining me. We're going to be talking New York Rangers hockey. As you guys all know, the Rangers win Game 7, advance to the ECF against the Tampa Bay Lightning, which starts tomorrow night in MSG. Jamie, it's been a terrific Memorial Day weekend. I'm sure yours was pretty good. I love the sunglasses, bro.
Yeah, I'm just had to come in. I wore them all day this weekend. Like, I don't wear them all the time, but this weekend I wore them like for the weekend, and that gave us the good energy going into the game. We'll put these away.
What'd you
And
have
happy
going
Memorial Day.
on this Memorial Day weekend? What'd you do? Anything good?
Hung out with my son. Hung out with my girlfriend, and we both have kids. We had a good time down in Virginia. So
Nice.
the gas was too expensive, but it was a very nice weekend.
Virginia, never been. Oh, I'm glad you have a good time. Me, I just hung out around home. I worked a couple of nights this weekend, made some extra cash, and watched some Ranger hockey. So let's get right into this, Jamie. This series, Eastern Conference semifinal against the Carolina Hurricanes. We spoke so much, me and you, going back on text messages during the course of this series, even before the series started. We had our doubts about this series because the Canes pretty much, I would say, dominated the Rangers during the regular season. We just could not find ways to beat them. And, we were a little hesitant to predict that the Rangers would win this series. We were on, we were iffy. We thought that this series can go either way. And then, things really started going downhill with the first two games of the series when the Rangers fell 2-0, losing 2-1 in the first game of the series in overtime, a game that the Rangers actually led 1-0, then allowed them to score on the Sebastian Aho late goal, and then the overtime winner by, who was it? Ian Cole, I think it was.
Yeah, it was Ian Cole,
and that was deflected in by Lindgren. So the Rangers score one goal in the first two games of the series. Then they go back home and they take the next two and they score. By the bunches against the Canes at home. They looked like a totally different team. And same fact about the Carolina Hurricanes. They were a totally different team than they were at home on the road. And the Rangers put a whoop into them. They tie the series. They go back to Carolina. Game 5, we were talking back and forth on text, and I was telling you, I think this is the opportunity for the Rangers. If they're going to win a game on the road in this series, Game 5 has got to be it, because then they go home Game 6, and there's a good possibility they can eliminate them in 6. It was a great series, Jamie. I tell you, it was a nail-biter. I didn't know if my heart could take any more of it. But I tell you, when they took that 2-0 lead in Game 7, I was, relieved. But then they scored 3, and then you're like, wow, this is good. This is really good. And then they scored that goal and make it 3-1, and you're like, oh, shit. Here we go again. The momentum was was starting to shift back to the Carolina Hurricanes, specifically in that second period, and then the Rangers just did what they needed to do and put them away. What are your thoughts about this series?
It was an up and down series for sure. There was so many up and down moments. It kept your heart racing. I think the Rangers were able to figure out the Hurricanes throughout the length of the series. I think that Gerard Gallant did. You can't say enough about the record, his personality, how he gets along. But I would say strategically in this series, he showed a lot of value, because the first two games we could not handle their forecheck defensively. We did some good things. I think the first couple of games we had a chance to win. So defensively, we were stopping them, but they still got those chances off the rush. Brendan Smith scores off the rush on a shorthanded goal, and that was the big goal in Game 2. That was off the rush on a turnover. So I think the Rangers did a good job, especially I would say the second game at home as well, the Game 4. They just found ways to stop them from just getting all their chances off the rush. And we would text each other, and you would say, there's too much time in the zone. There's too much time in the zone. And I would say, I think this is actually what we're looking for, because defensively, we were letting them skate around the perimeter, getting shots and blocking everything. So I think strategically we were able to figure them out over the 7-game series, and we'll get into all the individual players and who did what. But that's kind of what I took from it. I took great coaching from Gerard Gallant to change his game plan. to get to their style.
You can't say enough about Gerard Gallant. I swear. When the Rangers first hired him, when his name first started coming up in the news that the Rangers were serious about signing this guy to be the next Rangers head coach. I mean, I had my doubts, and then when I really thought about it, and I looked at what he did in Vegas specifically in their inaugural season, I mean, taking them all the way to the finals, I was like, maybe this is the direction the Rangers need to go. I really liked Quinn, I really did.
So did I.
But there was something about this new front office led by Chris Drury that didn't think that he was the right fit for this team. Maybe he wasn't playing the young guys as much as he should have. Maybe he was just using a strategy that Chris Drury wasn't very thrilled about. Whatever the case was, he decided that Quinn was not the guy and that he was going to bring in a new guy to lead this team. Yeah. But Gerard Gallant is like, probably if you're gonna vote on something that got the Rangers to where they are right now, he's got to be up there at least in top three spots, top three choices of why the Rangers are there. And the other reason is when we're speaking about Chris Drury really made himself look incredibly good at the trade deadline.
Oh yeah, he did.
I mean, the acquisitions of Vetrano, Kopp, Mott, and Braun brought a lot of skill, a lot of veteran leadership, and they've worked out so well for the New York Rangers from the moment that they stepped on the ice at Madison Square Garden up until that Game 7 against the Carolina Hurricanes. What do you think about that?
So, totally correct. And, just going back really quickly, we were not against the firing of JD and of Jeff Gordon. We thought they did a great job. We didn't think that David Quinn did a bad job, but Chris Drury has been in the organization for like 4 or 5 years, and I think ownership just saw this kind of performance in him, and that's why they made those changes. So didn't agree with it at first, but I think what Chris Drury adds to being a GM is he was a former player, and he's a very bright guy. People say around the league he's one of the brightest young GMs. So he has that experience being a good player, having good rookie success, knowing how to handle that. He's won a Stanley Cup early. He knows the game really well, and he was a really good player. So he knows what players fit into what Gallant wants to do. Frank Vetrano couldn't find a home in Florida because they had a lot of wingers. I mean, we took him, and he was immediately inserted to the first line. And not saying that our young kids can't do it, but for right now, for this moment, he was the guy we needed. Just speed, get pucks deep, and just rip shots. And Andrew Kopp being a flexible centerman was a very good strategy because Ryan Strome is up and down at center. We'll see what happens with him after this year. He has his moments, but in terms of having length and winning draws, adds another option. And he said to Drury, sorry about your first round pick, but he's been a point per game player since he's been here.
That's great. That's great. I read that today. I saw that somewhere. I forget where it was that I saw it, but it was great that he actually apologized to Chris Drury at the fact that the Rangers are going to lose their first round pick because they advanced to the ECF.
That's so funny. It shows the camaraderie in the room. I think that's another thing. Ryan Reeves too. Even the free agent signings like Goodrow. So since the offseason, he's really created a culture with this team in one offseason. It's very impressive with this trade deadline acquisitions. I don't think he built a team to win the Stanley Cup right now. So I think he was conservative enough, but added good pieces. Like he didn't give away too much. We still have a lot of prospects that next year, like we might be able to flip for better. So he's in a great position there. And Goodrow blocking shots, Mott killing penalties, Vetrano getting in the corners, taking the body. He can, the speed to cover guys. And then also Braun. Nemeth has been a poor signing. So that's like the only bad signing that I can really pin on him is Nemeth. You're making 2.1, and he's a healthy scratch here in the playoffs. So bringing in Braun was a good, I guess, reaction to that, and allowing Braden Schneider to play minutes because he is going to be an outstanding defenseman. So a lot of great moves by him. You got to give one of the big things to him.
I totally agree with you when the point that you made that the Rangers weren't ready to make it this far this season, but when you going back to the trade deadline. There was something that Chris Drury saw in this team that he thought maybe this may be a good opportunity for the Rangers to go deep into the playoffs here if we can get the right pieces in place. And his scouts you got to credit them. They did a really, really good job. Vetrano, we've already mentioned him. He was on a roster that had a lot of depth as far as wingers are concerned, and Florida really didn't have a need for them. What they do, they trade him to the Rangers. Well, thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
Kopp, he was, in Winnipeg this year, I think he was.
Yeah, he was in Winnipeg.
And he was having an okay season. He comes to the Rangers. He starts putting the puck in the back of the net. Never expected that, but he quickly became a fan favorite. Who's the other one? Mott, and he came from what, Vancouver, I think it was, in the trade with Vancouver. When we got him, I was like, I had no idea who the fuck this guy is. And he quickly got inserted into the lineup, and he quickly went to work, and you started seeing what he can do. And that's when I started realizing, you know what, I think maybe Chris Drury just put together a pretty good playoff team here, even though he didn't think he had one going into the season. So, good point.
Yeah, he was able to manage the future and the present so well and walk that tightrope. I was very impressed with the finessing that Chris Drury has done. And then Gerard Gallant, that hire. It's like you're in New York, you're a GM. He hits a home run with Gallant, who has a lot of experience taking older players and young players without playoff experience and getting them, through a Stanley Cup playoff. So he knows what it's like to coach someone like a Mika, to coach someone like a Trouba, and coach someone, even the younger kids as well, Lafreniere and Kakko and Hedel, who we'll get to as well. So he's been able to have expectations, but he's not really cursing anybody out. But he sticks up for his players during the games. He doesn't get too high over a winning streak, and he doesn't get too low when we lose. And I think the coaches, we talked about Quinn last year, how maybe some of the veteran guys weren't really his fan because he was more of a developmental guy with young players, and he did a good job. But Gallant was, he was a good player himself in the league, and he's able to address the stars, have been cool with them, and then let them lead the team. Like, you're seeing camaraderie and leadership that's just, it seems to me, it's at a different level.
Yeah, this team definitely has some chemistry. So let's go to the top of this series against the Canes, because obviously the theme here was each team winning at home the first 3 games of the playoffs. The Canes win the first 2. The Rangers win the next 2. The Canes win Game 5. The Rangers win Game 6 to tie it to force a Game 7. What did you see? What did you see the Canes doing at home that they weren't doing on the road, and vice versa with the Rangers?
No, it's a great question. What they were doing is they were able to establish their forecheck. That is what Rod Brindamore's teams have done almost better than anybody during the league, is putting pressure on the opponents. The way that they get those chances is through transition offense and by capitalizing on turnovers. So, for example, you block a passing lane, forecheck in front, you chip it out, their defenseman pinches, and everybody comes in 3-on-1, 2-on-1. And off of those chances, you're able to get passes around in an offense. And that's really how they've, manufactured their offense. Because if you look at their lineup, they don't have a guy like a Mika or a Panarin or a Crosby or a Malkin, or just as someone that can take over a shift and score. They don't have that. So they have a collection of really talented, good players, but the Rangers just had to find the matchups. And it seemed like early on in Carolina, they were able to get momentum and possession and outshoot us badly through that. I would say, though, even though they did get to their game in Carolina, there was a little bit of a silver lining, because we didn't allow them to score that much, and we were pesky and annoying to play ourselves. We capitalized on only one chance, so we had 1 goal, but we were pretty stingy. I think you got to give a lot of credit to Trouba and Miller for being, long, athletic, really not allowing any high danger stuff. But I think you're right. The first game, they were just able to attack and just get enough chances to beat us and beat, Shesterkin, who was really on his game.
Yeah, the Rangers led most of that game 1-0, and the entire game I was saying to myself that 1 goal isn't going to hold up. It's a matter of time.
The missed net.
Oh my goodness, I can't. I had nightmares about that.
I'm glad that we won because I think he's gonna be rejuvenated after. Man, that was tough.
Yeah, I hope so. But the Rangers scored 1 goal in the 3 games in Carolina in the first 6 games of that series. it's not like they didn't have the opportunities, and it's not like the effort wasn't there, because it was. I mean, again, like you already mentioned, their crowd was really into it, and they fed off their crowd.
Yeah.
And once the momentum shifted back to Carolina, they just weren't letting the foot off the pedal. The Rangers, on the other hand, they would get their chances. They would, get the momentum shift, and then they would just give it right back. They were taking their foot off the pedal and allowing Carolina to, possess the puck in their own zone and just go to work every single shift. But it was totally different at home for the New York Rangers. But Game 7, when we spoke after Game 6, and we were going back and forth, and we didn't want to predict the outcome of Game 7, because obviously we wanted to say we wanted the Rangers to win.
We were very quiet.
We didn't want to jinx it or anything. But we felt that if the Canes were going to lose a game at home, what's a better time and a better place than Game 7 for the Rangers to take down the Canes at home? What did you see in that game by the New York Rangers, who got off to a tremendously quick start, up 2-0, then 3-2, up 4-2. They never led by less than 2 goals in this entire game. What did you see the Rangers do in this game that they didn't do in the first 3 games in Carolina?
Yeah, so definitely get to Game 7. I just want to clarify, because we did talk about before that you were saying I'd rather it be 5, because you don't want it to be 7, but for some reason it took us a while to kind of figure out how, crack that code at home. So I think what the Rangers did a good job of was getting near the net and stopping at the net, not necessarily being high and looking for pucks, just making them defend. And the first power play they drew was because Kopp was standing in front of the net, and Fox was getting shots early. We didn't try to do the puck possession game right away. Just kind of throw something different at them and make them kind of scatter in the corners and defend. And I think Kopp drawing that penalty was a huge start to their strategy. And then during that first penalty kill was very crucial in the game for Carolina to get their fans in the game. And the fact that with 3, not as many seconds left, they did defend the power play pretty well. That burned them in the last few games, and that was getting the fans into it. But then off the rush, Lafreniere made a very nifty, very high-skilled back pass. He brought the defenders to him with his eyes to the net, a no-look kind of feed. And that's a great play to do in that moment. And Fox, the goalie and the defenseman is expecting the pass to the side. That's why Ronta's so far off the post. I think Fox kind of knew that and just stayed with it and shot. I'm so glad he made that shot and didn't try to pass it, because that was the right play. Just almost like an experienced play from a really young player. It was great to see. And that just took the crowd. They were just so surprised by that. And then it goes in their head, power play again. And so now it's more overcommitting, trying to be too aggressive. We talked about this during the week. People being too aggressive.
Something but Carolina in the first 3 games at home were very successful with the
and
pressure.
During the regular season too. Right. And the regular season too. You're right. Very right. It was they were very successful being aggressive, getting in transition, and we did let up 2 shorthanded goals in the series, so it did work.
Right.
So they're trying what was working, but what we were able to do was kind of get them out of position. Brady Shea comes too high to Panarin, and Kreider just sneaks in from behind right in front of the net where Kopp was, and was able to deflect it. So it sounds like the coaching game plan was excellent. Hold on 1 second. Was excellent.
Bless you.
For the New York Rangers, and that's why once it was 2-0, we texted. The crowd was fucking demoralized, dude. Mm-hmm. It just seemed like they just seemed desperate and out of solutions, and we just got more confidence throughout the game. Igor Shesterkin made an unbelievable save with his pad, and that was a chance. And I think that every time they had the puck, they shot it too quick or didn't pass it and got a little bit flustered being down, because they're not used to being down in the series, really.
Right.
This early.
Especially not at home.
Yeah. And then Strome gets redemption. He misses a wide open net. He goes by and scores. And that's against the rookie goaltender. I think once the rookie gave that one up, they were demoralized. Kreider, blazing speed, goes by their best defenseman, Jacob Slavin. Slavin doesn't even lay a glove on him. He just a high skill backhand. The Rangers' elite players were just firing on all cylinders, and the Hurricanes had no answer. They got a courtesy goal by, D'Angelo. They missed an open net before that too. So the Rangers were in their heads at that point of the game, I think.
How much of Ronta's confidence was deflated by being pulled in Game 6 after giving up 3 goals to the Rangers? Did you think that had anything to do with Ronta's performance in Game 7?
It's hard to say because the first goal was through a screen in front, and he's not. He might have. I think the Hurricanes were too jumpy. I think they were overcommitting. They were trying too hard to be in the right place. They weren't just letting the game flow. And I think that the Rangers were the calmer, the more poised, the team that executed better. And that's just very surprising because Carolina has been such a, very good team in the league for the last few years, winning series with Rod Brind'Amour and this group. So I think it was just they never really got it back to them. And I just don't think that they responded. Raanta, you could argue he was out of position on the first goal. I can give you that. But the second goal is like Chris Kreider has perfected those deflections. That's going to be a new NHL thing. Other teams will try to copycat that because he's getting so much production by getting those shot passes. I think he had 17 in the regular season, which was 9 more than anybody else. So
the fact that he was all by himself in front of the net.
Because Brady Shea came up to Panarin because he got that OT goal, and he doesn't want Panarin as a threat with the puck, and he was a decoy on a lot of power play success this season. So, I don't know if it's all on Raanta. I think his confidence was definitely shot after he got hurt, but he kind of he milked that one a little bit.
Me and you were talking about that. We thought that maybe he was just faking that whole injury.
He's back in that game, right?
Pretty much. He probably just gave up on the game and just wanted to be pulled out. He just didn't want to be a part of it anymore because now at this point his confidence is shot. His team is down 2-0. I think at that point it was a 3-1. I forget.
I think it was 2-0, and then he got pulled. And then when they put in the rookie, that's when Strome was able to come back on that rush and sneak that short side.
Right.
Kid sitting cold, and from there it's 3-0. It was not looking good for Carolina.
No, it definitely wasn't. And the Rangers kept pressing even in that second period. The first period Shesterkin had to make some brilliant saves.
Yes,
he had those 2 breakaway saves, something that Shesterkin has had a problem with in these playoffs. He gave up two breakaway goals. I believe one on the shorthanded against Pittsburgh, I think it was. Yeah. And then he gave up another one against 1 or 2 against Carolina. So that had been an issue. And when Ranger fans, and I'm sure I was one of those, when that breakaway was happening, I was like, oh shit, here we go again. Shesterkin's going to let that go in 5-hole like he did last game because, quite honestly, that was just way too easy. I just don't think he challenged the forward who was coming. I think he just stayed in the back of the net when he should have been coming out. But he made those 2 brilliant saves. Then, as you noted, he made that brilliant save. I think with his left pad or a right pad.
Yeah, left pad save. I think it was left pad save. Turbine in front.
Yep. That was huge because that makes it 2-1. The Canes are right back in the game. It probably changes the whole complexion of the game, being that they're 2-1 instead of eventually 3-0. And instead, Shesterkin, quite honestly, I don't think he stood on his head, but he did make some brilliant saves. And he was a huge difference in this game. The Rangers just didn't let up. I think there was a short period of time in the second period when the Canes regained some momentum, and they started working, they started getting shots on net, but they just didn't capitalize on any of their opportunities, and the Rangers again didn't take their foot off the pedal and kept working, and they got themselves a big enough lead that they felt comfortable with, but again, they didn't allow the Canes to get their game going, which was huge in Game 7.
Yeah, totally did. And another thing too, which we were discussing this too. Jacob Trouba is a big guy. He's been trucking people all series, and also in Pittsburgh. He's been a physical force for us, setting the tone, and he frees up a lot of space for Adam Fox because he's our best offensive defenseman and player. Arguably on the entire team, and he allows him to flourish. And Trouba and Miller are just beasts back there. But Trouba is really good at timing hits, timing them properly. He got caught a few times in Pittsburgh. He's been, kind of not been as aggressive, but when he does need to make a hit, he's been making it. And Seth Jarvis got absolutely laid out. Now, Seth Jarvis is like my height. He's like 5'9", 5'10", highly skilled rookie. But Trouba with a clean hit. And I'm just surprised at home ice. You're down 1-0 at this point. Not only does he get hit hard, as he gets up, they have too many men on the ice penalty. So it's almost like that isn't fair. I feel like the Canes were just getting violated because we score that tip-in beautiful power play goal. And Carolina, do you go 4-on-4? Do you try to go after Trouba and take a penalty and give up a goal? It's like a tough position.
Yeah, that was kind of tough. I agree with you, and we spoke about that just before we came on, and we were talking about that, because you were wondering why in the world didn't anybody go after Trouba after that hit. Me personally, I missed the hit. All I remember seeing is Jarvis crawling towards his bench.
Crawling. Yeah.
I mean, crawling to the point where I thought maybe he blew out a skate or something. He couldn't skate back to the boards. He was just trying to get himself to the boards. And then I noticed that when they got him into the bench area, when they sat him down, he fell backwards. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah,
and everybody was looking down on him, and they were like, hey, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Get up!" And then the trainer came over, and he was like, something was not right. They took him back into the locker room, and obviously, they say upper body injury. Obviously, it's a concussion. I mean, the hit I think Trouba laid into Jarvis was pretty clean. I mean, it was shoulder right into his chest. There was nothing dirty about it, and I can't say that it was a dirty play, because if it was a dirty play, I'd admit it's a dirty play, and it really wasn't. But I was kind of surprised and was taken back by the fact that the Canes didn't retaliate in any way. But I think that has a lot to do with the fact that every chance that the Canes got to try to get under the skin of the New York Rangers, it just didn't work, and it backfired on them to the point where they were taking the bad penalties because they were taking retaliation penalties, and they were paying the price, and they were paying the price dearly. And they saw this as maybe not a good time to take a penalty, and not a good time to go after Trouba. Maybe if they can get things going and maybe tie this game somehow, some way, maybe they would take their opportunity then. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I just can't see how a team, whether the hit was clean or not, and whether they saw it or not, that they allowed Trouba to go, get away with it in a sense.
Yeah, that surprised me. And I'm losing my voice here, as you can tell. I think I had the fan on going, so this could end up real bad right now. We were really on a roll, so that I do regret that. But you're absolutely right. I think, in the course of the game, Brindamore was a very gritty player. Jacob Trouba, connects with a guy much smaller than him. Now, you don't want to take a penalty, right? You don't want the Rangers to get on the power play, but you got to set the tone physically at some point. Jordan Staal comes to mind. Captain of the team. You know what? You got to talk on the bench. You got to line up on the draw, and you look him in the eye in the face off. You say, "Hey, man, listen, you want to be a man? This is Game 7. Let's do this. Gentlemen, take the 5-on-5." Because Trouba would do that. He's that type of guy, And I was expecting something like that to happen because, again, like you said, you got to get the fans back into it. And I think challenging Trouba with your captain. Now, if he doesn't do it, maybe it's Svechnikov. He fought Ovechkin, didn't go well, so maybe he's a little scared off. So there has to be a physical response, or you can just drill him into the boards, take the body, but they were not able to do that. I think that mentally as a fan, it's like, damn, like, you know what it's like? It's like, so you're at the bar, you're at the bar, you're buying a girl drinks all night, you're making her laugh, and you exchange numbers, ha ha ha, and then at 12 o'clock midnight comes, and another guy comes in and takes her to the dance floor. That's like how it felt. They kind of felt a little bit like we're kind of taking over right now. Like your building that you've been so dominant in, and you're questioning, man, like how good are we? How good is this team? Are we? And then the doubt set in. I just thought physically you had to respond there, and I think psychologically that impacted them. That's just how I see it. And I called Doug Russo today. He thought that they didn't want to commit any other penalties, but there has to be a way to not commit a penalty and try to get back. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I completely agree. I mean, somehow, some way, maybe you don't want to throw down the gloves and take a penalty. And I mean, if you do, and Trouba lays down the gloves, it's 5 minutes each. So there's no loss of manpower on the ice. So why not take the opportunity there and challenge Trouba to a fight? If he doesn't want to fight, you don't fight. You each take a roughing penalty. You each sit in the box for 2 minutes, and you don't take the 5 minute major. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, because if that was reversed and it was the New York Rangers player who got hit, say Panarin or Kreider or Zibanejad,
Kakko, someone like Kakko, like a young player.
yeah, absolutely, I would expect a guy like Reeves or Trouba, Goudreau, somebody to go after the person who hit them. I think the Canes were a bit soft on that. I can't explain exactly what their strategy was there. Maybe the coach may have said, you got to let it go. We need to win a game here. I don't know, but it made them look soft.
It did. I agree.
Let's go right into Game 7 here. There's two particular players that I want to point out that I felt that were non-existent in this entire 7-game series, and they showed up in Game 6 and then in Game 7. And I'm talking about Artemi Panarin, who scored in Game 6, and then Chris Kreider scoring the 2 goals in Game 7. These two guys were held, I think they were scoreless in the entire series up until that point. They had scored numerous goals in the series against Pittsburgh. I just don't know what it is about these guys that, all of a sudden, when you really needed them, they came through big. Why do you think that's so?
So I think that shows a couple of things. It shows clutch. You always want it to be the other way around, right? I would rather somebody first couple of games finding his way, but if that big moment comes, like, listen, last series with Panarin struggled a little bit too. He racks up assists, not as much of an impact, but he gets that Game 7 OT winner. And then, Panarin, gets on the board. He got an assist on the Strome goal. So, he's getting his assists. He's not making as an impact, but he's more of a decoy in some cases. I would say that the first 2 games of Carolina, the Rangers just couldn't solve what Carolina was doing. And there was 1 goal scored. So that adds to the total. But the Rangers are still competitive in those games. So I think even though, defensively, I can't hate Kreider defensively. He's locking up against Svechnikov. He's locking up against a lot of guys. So, Panarin is not a defensive, wizard, but he did a better job, I would say, this series, much better this series than last series. So the fact that I didn't always come through, I mean, it's the grind of the playoffs. Now, in the biggest moments, when they finally figured out Carolina, which is to make them play half-court hockey, really not off the rush, leaving guys back, especially with a lead, forcing them to just pass around and get shots. I'm gonna give them some credit, but I do agree. It does seem that in the biggest moments, our big players, especially Mika Zibanejad closing out Pittsburgh and this series too, Fox as well. It's very encouraging, and it's very it's something to look forward to. Obviously, you'd want them to be more consistent in the beginning of the series, but it's just a tough start, I guess, and shows a lot about the character of the group to just kind of keep trying. I think that we outwilled the Hurricanes. I think we just broke their will. I think that's really what it came down to in the series.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, at some moments during the course of the series, especially in Raleigh, I noticed that certain players were being shadowed. Kreider was being shadowed. Panarin was being shadowed. At times, I noticed that there were players all over the ice, and there was a Kane player shadowing each individual Ranger player. Like they were playing man on man.
Yeah.
I had never seen that before. I mean, I may have seen it before, but I've never seen it like that in the playoffs before, to where they just didn't allow the Rangers to do anything. They had no shooting lanes, no passing lanes, they couldn't do anything whatsoever in the offensive zone. And I think that's the reason why the Rangers were unsuccessful in scoring goals when it came to playing in Raleigh. But something changed in Game 7. They obviously were playing their game. Dump the puck, chase it, make something happen. Cycle. do whatever you have to do. Get any opportunity you get to shoot the puck, shoot the puck. The Canes were giving them those shooting lanes. They were giving them those passing lanes, something they hadn't done in prior games in Raleigh. And I was kind of drawn back by that because I was like, well, this is not the same team that's played, games 1, 2, and 5.
Coaching adjustments,
Yeah, I mean, you have to credit the New York Rangers coaching staff.
100% for those adjustments, yeah.
Galan has got to be like number 1 star here. I think Chris Drury is the number 2 star.
Down 2-0. Did not second guess. Yeah. Same attitude.
Yeah, I mean the Rangers in elimination games were 4-0 in these playoffs. They did it 3 times against Pittsburgh, down 3-1 in that series. They did it. They were down 2-0 to the Canes, then 3-2 after Game 5, and they came back and won Game 6 and 7. Both games, walls, up against the backs up against the wall. All in all, it was an incredible series. I enjoyed it. It was gut wrenching. It was nail biting. But when Game 7 came to the point where the Rangers led 2-0, I felt a sigh of relief. Maybe you didn't. Maybe a lot of Ranger fans didn't. I kind of felt that sigh of relief. When they made it 3-0, I was like, "Holy shit, we got this!"
I really thought we had it too, and I think like 2-0, we were kind of going to wait and see. But I think 3-0. I think after that was when the balloon kind of popped, and then when Kreider was almost like, that was just a dagger too, and the Hedl goal too. That was because D'Angelo scored 10 minutes left. The crowd's still around, and then for quickly for Hedl to come in and just. A kid that struggled a lot, in terms of getting on the score sheet, just seems to be in the right place now. And, we've talked about him over the years, but man, what a series he's had, coming up big.
What no better time to break out than this series against the Canes. I mean, Hedl has been really, really good. That kid line has been terrific. Capo Caco has been very, very good. He may not have been appearing on the score sheet every night. Or every so often like Lafreniere and Hedl have, but he has played a tremendous game. But credit Hedl and credit Lafreniere. I mean, these guys are kids. Lafreniere is a number 1 overall pick from 2020, and he's growing into his own, and he's quickly becoming a star on his team. And before you know it, he may be, he may very well be your next superstar on this New York Rangers team. I mean, the number 1 line, the Zibanejad line, has been terrific. Zibanejad is leading the Rangers in points in these playoffs. He's been really, really good after a slow start against the Penguins. The defense has been solid, and Ryan Lindgren, man, you cannot put this fucking guy down. You put him down, he just keeps getting back up.
You need a guy like that on a team, and he's a warrior.
He's a gutsy player, and I love that about him. I mean, when he left the game and the Rangers are down to 5 defensemen, I'm thinking to myself, God damn it, man! Here we go. Here it goes again. And then a few minutes later, there's Sean McDonough saying, "Oh, Ryan Lindgren is back on the bench." And I'm like, holy shit! I can't believe this guy is back on the bench. I mean, you can knock him down, but he's just gonna keep getting up, man. I love it.
Yeah.
What are some of the players you keyed in on? Some of the players that you thought had great performances in this series?
Yeah, love that you said Lindgren. He's like easy fan favorite, like glue guy. He's always got scars and scratches. He's always bleeding. You gotta love that. You need that. And I like what you said about Kakko, not on the score sheet, but I loved his Game 7 effort. Had a great chance in front. Got stopped by a good save. Was keeping pucks down low. He knows when the team needs to keep pucks down low, even when he was, on the 4th line, and before Goodrow got back, he still played his game. Like he knew, like after a lead, keep the puck deep. So appreciate that. I would say it's good to see Lafreniere, getting more confidence. I love that he was able to bring Philip Hedl, winning more faceoffs, like just being able to really compete and play with Jordan Staal and some of these grizzled veterans. And, we lost the first 2, but, after that we, went 4-1. So, we really, took ownership of the last 5 games, and Hedl being down the middle is a big part of that when Strome sometimes would struggle against Vinny Trocheck. I love Keandre Miller. I mean, he doesn't. I feel like not a lot of people talk about. I mean, he is so good. He joins the rush all the time, and he's very highly skilled in space. Has a very underrated shot. I don't think he shoots enough. I mean, that's the next step. I mean, Trouba has an absolute missile, but so does Keandre Miller. That's like the next phase of his game that I think he'll do. I hope he starts to maybe not be afraid to take more shots, but he locks up against the top wingers on the other team. There's a reason why we didn't let up, that much offense to them at home and really all series if you think about it. And he's a big part of it. He might be our most highly skilled defenseman at defense. At Fox's, he's mobile as a defenseman and offensively, but Keandre Miller is so solid. I mean, he's so young. He can play a ton of minutes and allows Trouba to make those big body checks, allows Trouba to kind of be more aggressive and take a couple chances because he has that closing speed. And they play off each other really well. So I love Keandre Miller as an undersung hero for the series. And Barkley, Goodrow, and Mott, especially, I think Tyler Mott has been, when he's been around, has changed the bottom six and able to, get pressure and, especially after a goal. It allows Ryan Reeves to go out and hit people and not turn it over because you have skill guys. So that's another one I would say as well. I would say Keandre Miller and Mott are some of the guys that maybe don't get as much love that have been so big.
Very nice, very nice. Let's move along. So the Rangers are now, 8 wins away from a Stanley Cup final.
Wow, dude. Over exceeding expectations.
Yeah, I'm like we've already mentioned in the show, and you've made plenty mentions before, that this Ranger team probably was going to be close to making the playoffs or, make the playoffs but not go very far because they were on a cusp of becoming a playoff contender. They're probably a year early, but to get this far, it says a lot about this team. Again, we've made mention of Gerard Gallant being, the head coach that he is, and we've mentioned Chris Drury putting this team together from the beginning of the season, then, solidifying the lineup at the trade deadline. But now we have the Tampa Bay Lightning, who just swept the Florida Panthers, the President Cup winner, I believe they were, right? And they scored a shitload of goals this year, and their goaltending just totally shut them down. 4 games to 0 in that series. They've been sitting around for a while, so maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing for the New York Rangers. But these are 2-time back-to-back defending Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah.
And they're willing to go to the extreme to make it 3 in a row. What do you think about these Tampa Bay Lightning?
Yeah, I mean, they're just so well coached. Their GM has done a phenomenal job. He got through the pandemic, was able to keep guys. They got a lot of heat for it, and they said to themselves, "Oh, well, you were able to keep a lot of people with the cap, and it was COVID." Well, they lost 3 players: Blake Coleman to free agency. They lost Yanni Gourde to expansion. They lost Barkley Goodrow to us, and they plugged that third line in their system perfectly. And they plug guys in every single time. Tampa Bay, the last couple of years, has gone deep in the playoffs. They've had guys hurt. So one year it was Kucherov that was out for a while. Then the one year it was Stamkos, where we played maybe 1 or 2 games in the playoffs and scored in that 1 game. So they had guys banged up, and now it's Braden Point. The fact that they were able to survive without Braden Point and just totally outclassed the Panthers. Panthers, I think, lost playoff experience coaching when Quenneville got out. So Quenneville was involved in that scandal, if you remember, with the Chicago Blackhawks. He got booted. And, you could argue that that's a topic for another time, whether it was, worthy or not. But, he got booted out, and they had a talented roster with great players, but they lacked that playoff adjustment, that playoff experience. And I think they just got outcoached and outclassed in that series. Bobrovsky making a lot of money, had a very poor series. Tampa Bay they grinded it out, and they pretty much, had their way with Florida. I was very surprised with Florida how many goals they scored. As
3
you said,
goals. They scored 3 goals in the 4 games.
That's just that should be unacceptable to me. A lot of Tampa Bay Lightning fans in the Florida crowd too, so there could be something there as well. But Tampa Bay, battle tested. They have the best goalie in hockey. I know that, Igor is going to win the Vezina, most likely, but Andrei Vasilevsky is the best goalie in the league. And he's a two-time defending champ. And you got Stamkos and Kucherov and guys like Killorn and Palat and just gritty guys. They have guys that can, Corey Perry, who is just a playoff veteran, being nasty on the fourth line. That's going to be tough for us because our bottom six, I think, really outclassed, or I wouldn't say outclassed. I think they outplayed the bottom six of Carolina as the series went along. Not in Carolina, it was the other way around. But I would say the last few games, our younger guys, our fourth line was better. So that matchup's going to be interesting. Missing Braden Point is going to be huge for them because he's great on faceoffs, great defensively. He's similar build to Strome, so he can guard him really well. So they do have Cirelli, they do have other good players, but that'll be to our advantage. And also, home ice. We've been so great at home. You mentioned something else about the long layoff. I think for the Rangers, this is the best thing. As a young group that's naive, just kind of they're playing with house money, I think you want to keep playing. I think this is best for them. For Tampa, I don't think the long layoff affects them as much, but they're going to have to be ready for a team that's hungry and that's not sitting around too long. And there is a little bit of a fatigue factor that can set in, especially in the first period. So it depends. If we take advantage of that and able to parlay that into a Game 1 win, that's great. But I don't know. Tampa Bay, to me, is just too tenured. They have just too much experience to allow that. So I don't know what your thoughts on that are, but I don't know if it'll affect them that much.
Well, Tampa Bay has been sitting around for a couple of days, or actually almost a little more than a week. So it's been a while. But, the Rangers, 2 straight 7-game series, and they got a day off, and they go right back to work on, tomorrow night. Tampa Bay being, sitting around for a while. I mean, I'm sure they've been practicing. They probably just not getting like any game time action out of it. It's just practice. But the fact of the matter is they've been skating. It's not like they haven't been skating and sitting around doing nothing.
Oh yeah,
but they're gonna be the fresher of the two teams. The series starts at MSG. The Rangers are going to have home ice advantage in this entire series.
And you'd hate to go to Tampa.
Yeah,
you'd hate that.
Yeah, you'd hate to go there games 1 and 2, just like you hated going to Carolina games 1 and 2. But they're home. They're going to have a home ice advantage. You want to at least take one of these 2 games at home, and then go back to Tampa. Hoping that you can split the series there. But the fact of the matter is you've already made mention to this. This team is deep. This team is good. They've got great goaltending. They've got some great, elite forwards.
And defensemen.
And defensemen.
Ryan McDonough is he's their second guy. I mean, they got the Norris Trophy headman. They still got Sergey. They got a deep
defensive core. Yep, no doubt about it. But in the end, it's going to come down to one thing, and it's going to come down to goaltending. It's going to be Igor Shesterkin against Alex, Vasilevsky.
Andrei Vasilevsky.
It's just going to be insane. This guy gave up 3 goals in 4 games against the Florida Panthers, who, scored 337 goals, I think, on the season. I think I saw. He had a casual 40 save shutout, just close out. I mean, he shut the door. He's impressive. Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a tough series. For me, it's hard to predict because I didn't see the Rangers getting past the Canes, and I'll be the first to admit that I really didn't think that they were going to defeat the Canes. I really thought the Canes were going to win that series in 6 games, and the Rangers end up taking it in 7. This series with Tampa Bay is going to be even much more difficult than the Canes. Again, like I mentioned, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. They want to go for number 3 here, and why not? But who's standing in front of them? It's the New York Rangers, and this is a pretty deep New York Rangers team. I don't know that they have the experience they don't have the same experience that Tampa Bay has. But I think they're getting there. I think these young stars on this New York Rangers squad are going to be good. I think they're going to match up well. I think you just have to, play your game and do your very best to keep shots from getting on Igor. Give Igor the opportunity to see the pucks come into the net, because as long as he's seeing those pucks, he's going to be able to make those saves, and as long as they're not being deflected off your defenseman and going into the back of the net, should be a good series. I don't want to give a prediction, man. You want to?
I don't either. We don't have to do that.
We don't have to do
the
that.
Series breathe. I want to let the series breathe, because predictions can be jinxes.
The way the series starts in New York at MSG is going to dictate how this series goes on in games 3, 4, 5, 6, and possibly even 7.
I totally agree. So here's the thing that we need to take advantage of is, I think the adrenaline, the enthusiasm of the crowd, the momentum, we got to take early. Here's the flip side. Now, if the game goes like third period, 0-0, 1-1, 2-1, if it's late in the game and it goes to maybe overtime, I think as it goes into overtime, then the advantage really goes to Tampa Bay, because if it's overtime, it's going to be a situation where, they're going to have the fresher legs for the longer, and there's more likely to capitalize on a mistake. So I do want to take advantage as quick as possible early on. The one thing that concerns me is in the Pittsburgh series, you had defensemen shooting pucks from the blue line and getting through for deflections, redirects. A lot of those shooting lanes seemed to be open. Mott and Goudreau were not there as well, and the Rangers didn't have as good of a PK, and maybe they've made adjustments. But do you have Victor Hedman and Ryan McDonough that are highly skilled, that are not like the Carolina bottom four, which really didn't produce at all in the series? And even D'Angelo 5-on-5 was not good. So the defense being able to manufacture offense, join the rush in the absence of point scares me, and the Rangers have to be prepared to defend that. I think Tampa kind of plays whatever strategy to win. I mean, Carolina, as we found out, was kind of a one-system team. They had to play their system, and if they didn't get to it, they weren't making offense. Tampa Bay can kind of make a lot of adjustments. They have a great power play threat with Kucherov, and he's just as good as Panarin on a power play, and you have Stamkos, who's just as good as Zibanejad on the one-timers. So you have a little bit of a different animal with special teams. So I think what the Rangers have to do is play a tight checking game, not take a lot of chances, be willing to shoot pucks from the outside, not be desperate, not get too fancy. I think that's how they have to play to be successful, but Tampa can also do that as well. So it's really going to be about the first game. Maybe you start the fourth line. Maybe you start, some guys to get some hits on the board, establish the physicality. It really depends, because that third line for Tampa is going to be coming in hot, looking to forecheck and bang people around. You get this crowd out of it, because that's the thing. The X factor is the Garden crowd is going to be rabid. There's going to be people screaming, and you got to let some ex-Rangers on there as well. It's going to be absolute mayhem at the Garden. Mayhem.
Do you know what the Rangers' record against the Tampa Bay Lightning was this year?
3-0.
And
what Gallant said in the postgame was the right thing. It doesn't mean a damn thing.
It doesn't. But
it really doesn't. I don't care. 3-0 regular season. This is because Tampa Bay is the 4th seed. They had a moment in the season where they might not have made the playoffs. Were kind of on the edge, and then they just, they turned it on. They know how to get here. All they need to do is get in the playoffs, and they know that
there was a short period. I think they were having some issues with COVID-19, or some players were out with COVID, and it caused. I think it was probably during the time when the Rangers were probably beating them. Was the time when their players were out in COVID, because the Rangers were 3-0 against them. They had a shutout. Shesterkin was 3-0, a 1.30 goals against average, and a 958 save percentage. That's very good against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Zibanejad, I believe, in one of those games had a hat trick. He had 4 goals in the series. So, as far as the regular season is concerned, and again, as you already mentioned, those numbers and that record means nothing, because this is the playoffs, and it's a totally new season, and it's a totally different circumstance. So, but I mean, I like the fact that the Rangers, played well against Tampa Bay this year. There's no reason why they can't carry that into the playoffs, but again, this is a totally different beast, because all their players are back in the lineup. They're not dealing with COVID-19 or anything like that. And, it's going to come down to goaltending. It's going to come down to special teams. The New York Rangers power play was 4th best in the NHL. I don't know where the Lightning ranked as far as power play is concerned.
They were up there. They were pretty solid. I mean, they got the guys. They got the power play guys to do it at every position. They might have skill wise just as good as the Rangers, if not better. I mean, you could argue that.
Well, looking at the numbers here, the Rangers finished fourth on the power play with 25.2% success rate, and in the playoffs, the Tampa Bay Lightning had a 32.5% success rate on the power play. So it goes to show you how good they've been, even against the almighty Florida Panthers, who they beat 4-0. So that's what it's going to come down to. I mean, 5-on-5, it's going to be a war. It's going to be a war of possession. Who's going to be able to cycle the puck better, get the puck deep, get the puck on net? Vasilevsky is just not going to give up a lot of goals, but hopefully Igor Shesterkin doesn't either. And it's going to come down to special teams, I think. Whoever scores more goals in the power play and who draws more power plays is probably going to be the team that advances in this series. What do you think?
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. I want to get to that point. I do have to run off for a quick second, come back, gonna get right to it.
All right.
Stay tuned.
All right, we're back. Go ahead, Jamie. So we were just talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning series and what we think is going to happen. What are going to be some of the key players in this series? You think for the New York Rangers?
So I think it has to be Strome, and it might be a different take, and here's why: because Braden Point is out, so they're down a centerman, and Strome needs to elevate his game playing against a centerman that's in his spot. Or in that rotation, in the first and second line rotate sometimes after, power plays and kills. You're going to see him a lot. You want to make sure that, he's doing a pretty good job of winning the draws. Obviously, Igor is probably it has to be the biggest. The Rangers have been outshot most of the playoffs. It's probably going to happen again. Bend not break. I think I like how we can close guys off defensively, but Shesterkin's going to have to be our best player. I really want to see more from Artemi Panarin 5-on-5, and I think that'll help with Strome if he's able to take advantage of some matchups. Rangers do get last change at home, especially feeling a team out in the series. It's good to have that advantage as well because, let's just say, for example, on an icing, you change lines, you can get up a fresh guys deep. If they put out people, you can go and respond. So I like Gallant's advantage there as well. I think Trouba has to be huge because, as great and as highly skilled as Tampa is, they're not the biggest and most physical team in the top six. Maybe toward the bottom with Nick Paul and some of their other third, fourth line guys, they can be gritty. Corey Perry, but they're high skill guys. That's not really their game. So I think Chris Kreider can have a big impact as well because he can take the body sometimes as a bigger player. But getting in front of Victor Hedman's going to be tough. So it's going to be the same guys. Panarin, I think 5-on-5 has to be a little bit crisper with his passes and more of an impact. I think if he can maybe, instead of maybe getting like 5-6 points in a series, maybe he can go for double digits. Let's get those numbers up. Let's maybe take advantage of some even strength opportunities. Filipino, I think the center position in general is going to be big. So Filipino has to continue. All of the guys that are feel good stories, they have to continue. They have to keep going on that trajectory. They can't it's been great. We had some great series, big moments. It's got to continue, and they have to learn on the job right now. And they're getting thrown into the fire. So it's going to be important for the younger kids. I think being at home is going to help them, but they need to get confidence early because they're going up against, the two-time defending champs. And I just don't want that to, pressure them or get in their head. So that's some of the things that I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think the key to the series is obviously going to be Chris Kreider. He's a big 50-plus goal scorer for the New York Rangers this season, and he's quickly approaching 60 here in the playoffs. So he's going to be key. I don't know that the Rangers are going to do very well against Tampa Bay 5-on-5, which is the reason why I feel they're going to do very well they have to do very well on the power play if they want to sneak out a win. Whether here in at MSG or even another win on the road in games 3 and 4, Panarin has to be big. Panarin at times has disappeared off the face of the earth. I mean, he's had his 1 or 2 games where he's excelled and scored goals, but he's got to do it on a more consistent basis. If he's not going to score goals, he's got to at least create opportunities for the Rangers to get the puck on net. You've already mentioned the center position; those are key. We got our asses kicked by the Carolina Hurricanes in faceoffs. Faceoffs are going to be huge in this series against Tampa Bay, specifically in your own zone. You want to win those faceoffs deep in your own zone because you want to control the puck. You want to get the puck out. You don't want to allow Tampa Bay to win faceoffs in your zone and then go right to work and create opportunities. It's just not gonna help the New York Rangers. They were very, very bad on faceoffs against the Canes. I think some of their players were in their 20s and 30% success rate.
Yeah.
Unacceptable. Goudreau came back in Game 6 against the Canes, and he was 50%.
He's been great on the draw.
He was 50% in that Game 6. I don't know what he was in Game 7. I forget. But he's been good. But he's not. He can't be out there for every faceoff. Mika Zibanejad, I think, was in his 23%. Hedl was, I think, at like 20-something%. Unacceptable. They have to do a better job on a faceoff. I don't know why the New York Rangers struggle at the faceoff circle. It just cannot happen. They have to do a better job with that because of the fact that you want to control the puck. You want to get the puck out of the zone on one pass, two passes max, and you want to get the puck out, get possession in their zone and start going to work. And that's where I see the Rangers having issues.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And not having Braden Point there, I think we have to take advantage. I think toward the end of the series, like the last 4 or 5 games, I think the Rangers did a lot better. I know I remember like specifically some defensive zone draws that were pretty big. Kopp is a guy that Gallant will sometimes put in if he feels that there's a matchup he needs to go, so he'll slide Kopp in on the second line. I think that Goudreau is very steady at taking draws, and I think he's a guy that in a defensive zone draw at a certain time in a game, having last change, might lean on Goudreau, and then you can have a quick change. So I like the Rangers' versatility. Not having Point there at the Braden Point is a very he's a shifty, maneuverable player. He's tough to put down, and he's very quick, and he's got great vision. So if we can really stop that from happening from the second or third guys that they're going to slide in, like a Cirelli, a Ross Colton type, if we can kind of slow them down. That would really be big and go to our advantage. And we have to do better face-offs. I think the Tampa Bay can play our style. We can play theirs. Goaltending is going to be the biggest thing. I think that we don't want to give them a power play, but I do want to play aggressive. I want to play aggressive forecheck. Maybe I start the fourth line. Maybe I put Goudreau, Mott, and Reeves out there just to kind of dump it deep and establish forecheck. I would consider that.
Well, that's going to be key in games 1 and 2 because Gallant is going to have the matchups that he's going to want. That's where Rod Brind'Amour was successful when he played in Raleigh, is the fact that he had the final matchups that he wanted. He was the home team, and I think that's where Carolina had most of its success. They were able to get the matchups that they needed and they wanted on the ice for the players that the Rangers are putting on the ice, and I think that's where Gallant is going to have to excel, specifically in games 1 and 2 here against the Tampa Bay Lightning, being at MSG.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But I think it's interesting. Every single year, a team kind of comes out that didn't move up before. Even though the Rangers at the beginning of the year, they had decent odds to go far, we're exceeding expectations. But, when you have really young players like Lafreniere and Kakko and Hedl and, Miller, you don't really know. They're grown up before your eyes, so you don't have experience to go back on, to look at and say they've done it before. But they might be able to do it now. We don't know. It's hard to win 3 Stanley Cups in a row. It's not done. It hasn't been done in a real – I don't think since the Oilers, the Islanders, I think.
It's hard to win 2 in a row.
It's hard to win 2 in a row. Pittsburgh did it a few years ago. They got bounced. A lot of their players have been doing this for so long. And, yeah, they're still hungry. You can't question their heart of a champion. But every once in a while, you can get picked off. It's not impossible. So Vasilevsky at the goaltender position is such a huge X factor. The Rangers, not saying they got it easy, but Louis Domingue and Ranta, you're not playing elite goalies. I mean, you go from fringe starting goalies at best to the best.
Right.
So the same shot selections you're taking are different. He's covering up more of the net. He's going to take everything low. So there's a different strategy. You can't just – he can handle the puck really well as well and shoot the puck out. A lot of Russian goaltenders are really good at that. So there's a lot of advantages that we want to have that will negate. But it's hard to repeat 3 times in a row. A lot of these guys have played many deep playoff runs. They are the most rested. So I expect Tampa Bay to be well coached and coming out hard. They might score first. It's possible. They might shot it. The Rangers have been down in some of these games and had to come back. The Rangers, they're going to be riding on momentum, but Tampa Bay is going to want to make a statement, okay? And especially Ryan McDonough coming at Madison Square Garden. He wants to make it. It's Madison Square Garden. It's the Rangers. You got more fans watching. This is a big game. This will definitely motivate Tampa Bay to be at their best at prime time. They're hearing a lot about the Rangers. We're the champs. And we have to withstand that pressure. I think defensively, Keandre Miller is going to be a massive force with Jacob Trouba. You love Ryan Lindgren's intangibles. I think the bottom two, Braun and Schneider, Braun has clearly earned a spot as that 6th D man, and Schneider's been holding his own. So we need all of those guys to be tight defensively, not pinch in when necessary. The one thing about Tampa is that they don't have the blazing speed as Carolina. Carolina's makeup is speed through all 4 lines. So I think we can catch up to them. I think it's going to be a lower scoring series. I think there's going to be games where it's 2-1, 1-0, 3-2, and watch game 1 be 6-5, right? But I'm just saying, I'm envisioning low-scoring, grinding type of games where it's going to be a lucky bounce. I think there's going to be some overtimes, going to be some heartbreak, going to be some triumph. We have the team right now that I think can handle it, but it's hard to do it, and it's going to be a fascinating series. Again, no predictions coming. Not even going to go there. I'm just going to let it breathe. But don't you have to feel confident in the lineup that we have? I mean, it's not like we are underdogs, but I don't think that we don't have a shot at all, right? I mean, I don't feel that we're totally.
I don't feel that way at all. I think the Rangers have been a very resilient team throughout these playoffs. They did it against Pittsburgh. They did it they did it again against the Canes, and they could very well do it here against Tampa Bay in the Eastern Conference Final. The Rangers are going to be going up against some very talented players in Kucherov and Stamkos and their defense. So there's some elite level players on this team. You made mention to it. They are a bit older. They might not be as fast. Rangers might be a little faster. Maybe that can, that could take its course, and maybe the Rangers outrun these guys out of town. I mean, you never know. You just don't know what's going to happen until you actually start seeing some game action and start seeing how the Rangers react to the Tampa Bay forecheck, if they have any, or their
it's more of the grit, the behind the play shit that they know how to get away with in these spots that the Rangers don't. It's the experience. That's what comes into play, like a little cross check in the back behind the play that you didn't get before, because they don't have this experience and they know what they can get away with. So that those type of little things, the Rangers are going to have the disadvantage, and they have to go through that.
Absolutely. So we're going to leave it at that. You want to add anything else?
I just want to apologize for the interruptions today. I don't know. The AC unit has to get better. I'm breathing in hot air into my mouth. I'm sipping water out of this thing. I got planks of wood my contractor has to take back. I'm going to switch things around and have a better background next time.
How's the place coming along?
It's coming along. Well, it's supposed to be done a little while ago, but I'm getting on the contractor here. He's got to finish up. He's got to hang some things. He's got to fix a couple of the floors. So it's still a work in progress, but I'm excited for this Rangers game. I'm going to tune in tonight. I think the Oilers and Avalanche is going to be a phenomenal series. I mean,
I
you got
haven't watched
McDavid and
any.
McKinnon.
I haven't watched any of the Western Conference games at all. Maybe I sneaked in on a couple of games here and there, but I really haven't watched all that much. They're
So,
on so late at night. I can't stay up that late.
so tonight it's on at 8 o'clock. It's on in 25 minutes, dude. You got to see Connor McDavid play. I mean, like, he is on another level. He is by far and away the most elite player in the NHL. It's not even close. Like, Crosby's still great, and McKinnon. There's other guys that are, but he can just do things that nobody else can do. I would just watch him for that, and Nathan McKinnon as well. High scoring series because the goaltending is not that great, so it's going to be some action. So I check that out. But yeah, Rangers, man, dude, I can't fucking wait for tomorrow, dude.
I am so excited for Game 1 tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. I can't stand the coverage, that ESPN coverage. I don't know if you've enjoyed it.
Ray Ferraro, yeah.
Sean McDonough, I just can't.
He's okay. He's okay.
I just wish that Sam Rosen was doing these games. I don't know.
Sam Rosen is just he's just different, man. And he is definitely Homer for the Rangers, and I just love that. He's just a lovable guy, and Joe on the call as well. But Sam has that iconic Ranger voice. You missed Doc a little bit. I loved Gary Thorne on ESPN back in the day. Why can't he come back? He was great at hockey, especially during the the Detroit Red Wings and Avalanche years in the late 90s. He was the best.
Last I heard, he was doing Baltimore Orioles games.
Yeah, he's just stuck with Baltimore. He probably just has a cigar, has his whiskey, and just does it and just chills.
Yeah.
And he gets paid a lot of money.
I'm sure he does.
But we miss him. Yeah.
All right, Jamie. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. This was a great conversation. I enjoyed it. Hope you did too. Lots of luck with your new place, and we'll talk. We'll just keep talking New York Rangers hockey throughout this series. Hopefully, the Rangers will somehow, some way find a way to get past the Tampa Bay Lightning and head to the Stanley Cup final. We can only hope. All right, Jamie. Take it easy, brother.
Tomorrow,
Thank
baby.
you. Peace out, yo.